1. Blog Talk Radio.
To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trusting you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on Yahweh be ashamed. Put shame on those who sin without a cause. Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down and patient. As a child, all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth. Lead me in your truth, and he'll give your soul ease. The earth shall remain inherited by a seed. The secret of Yahweh who fears Elohim, a fool believes everything. And to every word spoken, you can't take heed unless you hear somebody curse. You know you did the same thing. That's why I'm begging Yah for mercy and His love and kindness, cause I know that I ain't worthy.
Captivity is taking hold upon me. Put frighten me and now we flee from fallen leaves. The grinding grief from all the blood our people seen. And now we cry, where is the word from Elohim? And so we physically always wise to be submissive, but we dismiss it. It is of this reason we have fallen victim to the lies that your root will prey and pursue. Rebellious of his son, forgotten that he is one. Broken the holy ordinance, rejection of reproof. Then acknowledge what we do. Now we return back to the truth.
Yah's word is the truth. Yah's decrees is the proof. Local 12 just released the scoop. It's the summer of Sam. They calling it Ham. Made us worship the Son of Man. And somehow that the moon, they stole our style and gave it to Rothschild. Now we exhaust the vow, but hit the turnstile. Yah's Navi set the crooked things straight. Praise Yah from the rising to the evening to the closing the gate. Exposing the fake. Yah give the truth a daybreak. Now the liars can't escape and the haters can't relate to the light that truth makes. See the wicked's pride deflate. Ye adore Yah, magnify Yah, cut his grace.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Turn me down. Giving all praises, all honor, and all glory unto the mighty Elohim, Yahweh, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of YISHYAH, and the Elohim of Yaakov, or the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Giving all praises, all glory, and all honor unto the mighty Yah. Because Yahweh is righteous, Yahweh is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. Welcome again to another broadcast of Nothing But the Truth. I am Mowreh IshYAH, ben YIsraEL, of the House of YIsraEL of Cincinnati, located at 1907 Vine Street, here in Cincinnati, Ohio, bringing you nothing but the truth of the mighty Yah. And who is this Yah? Well, Yahweh is the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yahweh is the only judge, the only lawgiver, and the only king, and the only redeemer and savior of Israel and the world. Yahweh is the Elohim that took the children of Israel from the house of bondage from the land of Egypt and brought us into our own land, and said that if we keep his covenant, that we would be a peculiar treasure to him above all people of the earth, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. But if we forsake him, he will forsake us, and he will scatter us to the four corners of the earth, as it is this day. Yahweh is the Elohim of the so-called African American. Yahweh is the king. Hallelujah. And Yahweh is the Elohim of knowledge. And we're going to teach Yah's knowledge tonight. And we'll also be accepting your questions if you have any. You can call us on our Blog Talk radio program at 347-838-8963. Or you can ask your questions through YouTube or Facebook. And make sure when you're on Blog Talk, if you have a question, you can press the number 1. And what will we be presenting tonight? We're going to present what Yahweh has to say about his flock. In the beginning of this week, you heard Mowreh IshYAH teach on a faithful man. Because a faithful man, who can find? Just like a virtuous woman, who can find a virtuous woman? Why? Because a faithful man and a virtuous woman is someone that Yahweh has sought out and raised up and put up before the world. So they're rare. Yahweh just don't select just anybody. Just because you might be tall, or just because you might look good, or because you might have good speech. It doesn't matter. Moses wasn't a good speaker at all, but Yahweh chose him. David was a shepherd boy, but Yahweh chose him. Noah became a husbandman, but Yahweh chose him. The prophet Amos said he was just a herdsman, a shepherd man, following after the flock, but Yahweh chose him. So it doesn't matter where you think you're coming from. It's what Yahweh sees. And as he told Samuel, man doesn't look as Yahweh looks. For Yah looks upon your heart, but man views the outward appearance. So how you going to find a faithful man when you're going to go to the richest man in the world and say he must be faithful? Or to the best basketball player and say he must be faithful? Or to the most popular and say he must be faithful? But Yahweh sees differently. And a faithful man, as we learn, is a man of truth, hating covetousness, fearing Elohim, humble, meek like Moses, a man after Yah's heart like David, a man that walks with Yahweh like Noah. Who can find a faithful man? Then the following day, I presented to you on the third day. How I forget what I taught. Remind me, Lemuel, what was the topic? It just escaped me. Oh, yes. Now I remember. Purpose and commitment. See, I got a lot of children. They be making me forget stuff. But purpose and commitment. And we spoke about and taught about Yah's purpose for his children of Israel, which is to be his servant and to glorify him. And once you know who you are, you can start to understand your purpose. And then yesterday, our beautiful brother Mowreh Napthtali taught about Yah's ways, Yah's thoughts, and about the man being the shepherd of his household, the leader in his house. How are you going to be a leader in Israel if you can't be a leader in your house? This is how Yahweh sees things. Not just you just some cool guy, career man or woman. And you just loved and liked and adored when you go out the doors of your house. But you got to know how to take care of your house. And all of this also pertains to knowing and being able to understand your culture and how Yahweh sees our culture. Well, we're going to expound on all of these things today. And we're going to deal with Yah's flock. Because Yahweh has a flock. And Yahweh has an opinion and a desire with and about his flock. So if you go with me to the book of Ezekiel, the 34th chapter. And we're going to start reading in the first verse, where it states, "And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Yisrael. Prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith Yah Elohim unto the shepherds, Woe be to the shepherds of Yisrael that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks?" And before I go any further, I failed to say shalom to all the viewers and listeners on Blog Talk and YouTube and Facebook. Shalom to our beautiful audience out there. We know the only reason you're listening is because of your great fear and love toward the mighty Yah. So shalom to everybody. And excuse me for not addressing you in the beginning. But praise Yah. Now Yah said, Woe be to the shepherds, in Ezekiel 34:2. Woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Now, why would Yahweh say that? What is Yahweh upset about? Why does he have this statement? Because that is exactly what the shepherds of Israel are doing today. Feeding themselves, pleasuring themselves, doing things for their own desire. And they're not feeding Yah's flocks. We read further. Yah say, Ye eat the fat, and ye clothe you with the wool. Ye kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. The diseased have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick. neither have ye bound up that which was broken, neither have ye brought again that which was driven away, neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have you ruled them. And they were scattered because there was no shepherd, and they became meat to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. Now this is an indictment from the mighty Yah to all the shepherds. And make no mistake about it, if you are a leader among Yah's congregation, among the children of YIsraEL, among the Hebrew Israelite, whether you're a Christian pastor, a Hebrew pastor, Muslim pastor, if you're over the children of Israel, Yahweh is talking to you. He's letting you know that the shepherds are not doing their job. And why? Because many of Yah's servants don't serve Yah, even though that is what he raised us up for, to do, to serve him. The same shepherds that aren't leading in the congregation after the manner of Yah are not leading in their own household after the manner of Yah. Yahweh's shepherds have to be for Yahweh and Yahweh alone. Yahweh's shepherds cannot be feeding themselves. Because once you become these type of shepherds that Yahweh just indicted in these first 5 verses in Ezekiel 34, now you see a scattered flock. And how does Yahweh feel about his scattered flock? Well, let's go to the book of Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter. In Jeremiah 23, verse 1. Yahweh says in Jeremiah 23, verse 1, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith Yahweh. I thought we were talking about shepherds. Well, didn't you know a pastor and a shepherd are essentially the same thing? Pastors and shepherds is the same thing. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, verse 2, of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people. Ye have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, saith Yahweh. If I was a shepherd or a pastor of Yah's flock, and I knew I fit this category of scattering the children of Israel, I'll be sorely afraid. Because this is something we don't want to be accused of. Because if you scatter Yah's people, but call yourself a pastor or a shepherd, then Yahweh has a controversy with you. This is what Yahweh wants us to do as his shepherds and pastors. He doesn't want us to scatter, but this is what we're supposed to do. Look in Jeremiah 31. And how are you going to learn the proper way to be a shepherd if you don't take care of your own home? if you're not going to raise your own family after the manner of Yah? In Jeremiah 31, verse 10, it states, hear the word of Yah, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, he that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd doth his flock. See, that's what a shepherd is supposed to do. Keep his flock. Gather his flock. And Yahweh, he is the shepherd. Let me show you what it says in Psalms 23. In Psalms 23, verse 1, it says here, Yahweh is my shepherd, I shall not want. David said this, Yahweh is my shepherd, and Yahweh is the shepherd of shepherds. That's why Yahweh said he's going to gather his people. Because even though the ones that Yahweh set out to be the shepherds, they've rejected the Most High, yet Yahweh said, I'm going to gather them. Now let's go back to this Ezekiel 34. So I want to show you how Yahweh feels about his flock. And as we see, Yahweh has a lot to say about how you treat his flock. In Ezekiel 34, we left off at verse 5. Now we're at verse 6, and it says, my sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them. And you want to know why? Because the shepherds have been feeding themselves, killing Yah's people. They're not going out to help the sick. They're not going out to heal and to bind up. Yahweh's shepherds should be men or women that know that if you have sick and downtrodden amongst Yah's flock, as Yah's shepherd, it's your duty to help heal them, to deliver Yah's words and Yah's desires upon the flock. But Yah said that they're scattered everywhere. And look what it says in the book of Jeremiah, the 50th chapter. In Jeremiah chapter 50, we'll begin reading around verse 5, where it says, verse 6, where Yahweh says, my people hath been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. Why? Because the shepherds aren't doing their job. Israel should not be scattered like this. But we are. Because those so-called pastors and these so-called shepherds aren't doing their job. In verse 7 it says, all that found them have devoured them. And their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against Yah, the habitation of justice, even Yah, the hope of their fathers. A shepherd is supposed to protect the flock from the wolves, from the beast. How do I know that? Let's look at what a shepherd said about being a shepherd. Go to the book of 1 chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17. We'll start at verse 32. This is David as a youth. Look at what the youthful David said. And I guarantee you, you won't find a shepherd that claims that it's okay that there's various sanctuaries in one city as bold as David. In 1 Samuel 17 verse 32, David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth." So you see, David was a young man, was a youth, wasn't even a man. He was a youth. And Saul looked at him and said, "Man, you just a kid. You can't go fight this guy. He been a man of war since he was a kid." Saul didn't know who he was speaking to, because as it says, as Yah said, man look on the outward appearance, but Yahweh look upon the heart. And David's heart was bold as a lion because he seek Yah. And David said unto Saul, "Thy servant kept his father's sheep," because David was a sheep herder. Kept his father's sheep. And there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. Now listen to what David just said. He's a youth, and he saw this lion and a bear take a lamb out of the flock, and I went out after him. How many of these shepherds are going out after the one lamb, the one sheep that gets snatched up by one of these liars, that gets snatched up by one of these lying doctrines? How many of the shepherds are going out after them? No, what the shepherds are doing nowadays, they just turning their backs and saying, "Good riddance." They didn't like what I said anyway. They didn't pay tithes anyway. They didn't give donations anyway. They always finding a reason why there's no need to go and get one sheep. But David said one lamb went out, and he went after him, and he smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living Elohim. See, this was David, a shepherd boy. And he was bold because he knew Yah was with him, because he knew Yah is his power. He knew that there's nothing too hard for Yah. And if anybody dare defy the armies of the living Elohim, David knew that if he stood up for Yah and went and defended Yah's sheep, Yah's flock, that Yah would be with him, and there would be nobody that could stand against him. But yet, we call out to the children of Israel daily and to all the leaders and ask them to discuss these matters of controversy, so Yah's flock may no more be scattered. So we don't have to have two opinions. So we don't have to be the cause of the division of Yah's flock. Because you know, when you have all these different opinions amongst the supposed to be shepherds of Yah's people, it makes the flock divided and scattered. Because now the sheep are going to go with who they like and what seems right to them, regardless if it causes division or not. Because the shepherds have divided, the flock will now divide. Let them never, and if the flock shepherds is dividing, you know they're not going and getting just one lamb that been snatched up by a wolf, by a lion, by a bear. No. And this is how David did it. He was this kind of a shepherd. Go back to that Ezekiel 34. In the book of Ezekiel, the 34th chapter, we was at verse 6. Now we're at verse 7. Therefore, ye shepherds, hear the word of Yah. As I live, saith Yah Elohim, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd, neither did my shepherds search for my flock, but the shepherds fed themselves and fed not my flock. And what I'm emphasizing here, brothers and sisters, is that this flock that we are a part of belongs to Yahweh. This flock belongs to the Almighty. It doesn't belong to the shepherds. It doesn't belong to the pastors. It doesn't belong to them. It belongs to Yah. That's why he said, my flock. So any shepherd that Yahweh has before his flock should go back and humble down and realize that Yahweh is the judge, Yahweh is the lawgiver, and Yahweh is the king. This flock don't belong to us. It belongs to Yahweh. And Yahweh said, these shepherds haven't went out for them, didn't look for them, but what they did was sat back and fed themselves. Let me show you something. Look in the book of Isaiah, the 56th chapter. This is how Yahweh sees these so-called shepherds or pastors. In Yahweh 56, we'll start reading. I'm sorry, what'd I say? Yahweh 56? Isaiah 56, verse 8. It says verse 9. All ye beasts of the field come to devour, yea, all ye beasts in the forest. His watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. It is what Yahweh called these shepherds, these pastors, these watchmen. He said they're blind, ignorant, dumb dogs. That's why they get D degrees. Dumb dogs. They cannot bark. What's a dog that can't bark? What you got a dog for if it's not going to bark? Ain't that why you get a dog? To let you know when somebody's coming? Let you know when there's trouble coming? The dog's supposed to bark. What good is a dog that don't bark? What good is a shepherd that don't guide, that don't protect, that don't gather in? What good is a watchman that don't watch out for you? Sleeping. What good is a sleeping watchman, a sleeping shepherd, a sleeping dog? Lying down, loving to slumber. What good is a shepherd that's just sleep all day, drunk all day? Yeah, drunk all day. Verse 11. Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. What good is a shepherd that can't understand anything? Yahweh said the fear of Yah is the beginning of wisdom, and a good understanding have those that do his commandments. Well, if a shepherd don't understand, then he must not do the commandments of Yah. And what good is a shepherd teaching you the commandments of Yah, but don't do the commandments of Yah, him or herself? What good is that kind of a shepherd? It says that shepherds that cannot understand, they all look to their own way. The shepherd don't go up there and deliver the messages of the Most High. They deliver the message that people want to hear. Everyone for his own gain. I've seen congregations just throwing money at the feet of the pastor. Pastors with houses bigger than their congregations' sanctuaries. Houses out of this world. Money out of this world. I know family that's been to these big churches and they struggling just like everybody else. But this church, what help are they doing? These shepherds, all they want is their own gain, their own power, their own praises. In verse 12 it says, "Come ye," say they, "I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink. And tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant." Yeah, this is why you see these shepherds living high off the hog, but you still down. You still looking for Yah. You still don't know the truth. You still scattered. You still trying to figure things out. Let's go back to that Ezekiel 34. Because what are we talking about? We're talking about Yahweh's flock. We're showing you how Yahweh sees his flock. And you see that Yahweh, he's dealing with his shepherds first. Because Yahweh's flock is led by shepherds, by pastors. But Yahweh has obviously shown us that his shepherds are not doing their job. In Ezekiel 34, we left off at verse 8, so now we're on verse 9. "Therefore, O ye shepherds, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim, Behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither shall the shepherds feed themselves anymore, for I will deliver my flock from their mouth, that they may not be meat for them. For thus saith Yahweh Elohim, Behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out." Yeah, Yahweh is going to stop all this madness. Yahweh is going to stop the madness of his flock being taken advantage of. So be ye warned, O shepherds, Yahweh is saying, because he's coming to get his flock. Your payday is coming to an end. Your days of taking advantage of Yah's flock is coming to an end. In verse 12 it says, as a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. Because this is what a shepherd is supposed to do. You're supposed to go seek your flock. You're supposed to go find out where the lost ones went. We're not supposed to just sit in our own corners waiting for them to come to us. We got to get up. We got to look for them. We got to make big signs and say we're here. We got to send out our people to go get them. Look at this book in the first book of Samuel. Look how shepherds do their job. In 1 Samuel, believe I want the 9th chapter. Because if you didn't know, being a herdsman, being a husbandman, being a shepherd is the foundational occupation of the children of Israel. Let me show you the proof to that before I show you this Samuel. First, go to Genesis 46. If you want to know, I know Mowreh Napthtali was saying this is part of your purpose, to be a shepherd. Part of your purpose, to be a leader in your house. And it is. And look at the foundational occupation of the children of Israel. Why do I say foundational? Because your foundation, our fathers, their occupation was being shepherds. In Genesis, the 46th chapter, we'll begin reading in verse 30 where it says, and Israel said unto Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, my brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me, and the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. You see, all our fathers were shepherds. All of them. Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. All of them shepherds. All of them were shepherds. And they didn't go anywhere without their flocks. And it shall come to pass, in verse 33, when Pharaoh shall call you and shall say, what is your occupation? That ye shall say, thy servants' trade hath been about cattle from our youth even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Yeah, Egyptians were modernized metropolitan people. They didn't care nothing about no shepherds. Does that sound familiar? Who care about shepherds today in America? You don't see nobody caring about flocks today in America. Everybody's out for their own gain. It's the individualistic capitalist society here today. Nobody care about being a shepherd, following after the sheep. They try to insult you and say that you're sheeple. You're a bunch of sheep people just following. Well, everybody following somebody. In customary society today is following worse than sheep. Yahweh said be the he-goat before the flock, because the he-goat is the leader of the flock. But the people today in this country, which Yahweh said is Egypt, they don't want to be no shepherds. That's why that's why Yosef told them. He said, look, just let them know that we shepherds, we've been shepherds since our youth, because shepherds are an abomination to the Egyptians. They're going to put you over there in Goshen, which is the best part of the land, because that's where all the flocks feed. And Pharaoh made them keeper of his flock because they didn't want to do that job, following after sheep, picking up cattle dung, making sure the sheep are good. Once you know how to raise animals and care for animals, now you could care for your household. You could care for a nation. That's who Yahweh chose. Shepherd men. Men that knew how to take care of a flock. How you going to be a leader in your congregation, a leader in your nation, but you don't know and don't even consider the ways of old? Why should we consider this? I'll show you. It's in the book of Jeremiah, the 6th chapter. And after this, we're going to go right to that Samuel, just to show you how shepherds deal with their flock. In Jeremiah 6, verse 16, it says, thus saith Yah, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Being a husbandman, being a shepherd, is the old ways. That's how Yahweh sees that. Now back to that 1 Samuel 9th chapter. We get right to it. In verse 1 it says, now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bechorat, the son of Apiah, the Benjamite, a mighty man of power. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. And the asses of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul his son, take now one of the servants with you, and arise, go seek the asses. And he passed through Mount Ephraim, and passed through the land of Shalisha, and they found them not. Then they passed through the land of Shalim, and there they were not. And they passed through the land of the Benjaminites, but they found them not. They did all this just to find some sheep, just to find some donkeys. They did all this just to find some donkeys, because that's what you do when you're a shepherd. You go looking for your flock. That's why Yahweh said he's coming to get his flock. Go back to Ezekiel 34. What are we discussing? We're discussing Yah's flock and how Yahweh sees his flock and how Yahweh sees how the shepherds have dealt with his flock. And the report is not good for the shepherds. Now in Ezekiel 34 verse 13, Yahweh says, And I will bring them out of the people, out from the people, and gather them from the countries, and will bring them to their own land, and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by the rivers, and in all the inhabited places of the country. See, Yahweh is going to get his people because the leaders of these people have caused them to err, and Yahweh is fed up with it. In verse 14 it says, I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be, and they shall lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, saith Yahweh Elohim. I will seek that which was lost, and bring again that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong, and will feed them with judgment. Uh-oh. He's not just talking about the shepherds, is he? And as for you, O my flock, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, behold, I judge between cattle and cattle, between the rams and the he-goats. You see how he always starts with the leaders first? Because this is about Yah's flock, how Yah sees his flock. And Yahweh is just now showing you, first he had to take care of the shepherds. Now he's going to judge the cattle. And the first of the cattle that he's going to judge is between the rams and the he-goats. Why? Because those are the leaders. And in verse 18, seemeth it a small thing unto you to have eaten up the good pasture, but ye must tread down with your feet the residue of your pastures, and to have drunk the deep of the deep waters, but ye must foul the residue with your feet. What is he saying? He's saying among the cattle, the leaders, which are the men, they eat up the food, they take in all the substance, and then they destroy the rest of it. And they don't leave none for the rest of the cattle, for the women and the children. And how do you know he's talking about the man of Israel when he's speaking about these rams and these he-goats? Because look at what it says in the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. Isaiah 3 verse 1, it says, for behold, Yahweh of hosts doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water, the mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet and the prudent and the ancient, the captain of 50 and the honorable man and the counselor and the cunning artificer and the eloquent orator. Yeah. He takes away them kind of men. So now these men, they're not doing nothing right. Look what it says in Isaiah. I'm sorry, go to the book of Hosea, the 4th chapter. Sixth verse says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt not be a priest unto me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy Elohim, I will also forget thy children. Who's supposed to teach and lead and give knowledge? The leaders, the men. So Yahweh said these men ain't doing what they supposed to do in Ezekiel 34 about the rams and the cattle. They forgot knowledge. They rejected knowledge. He took away these men. So in Ezekiel 34, verse 19, it says, "And as for my flock, they eat that which ye have trodden with your feet, and they drink that which ye have fouled with your feet." Yeah, the men and the leaders in Israel, they're not looking after the ones they're supposed to lead. They're dealing in violence. That's why it says in Jeremiah 9, every brother utterly supplants. Everybody is out for their own gain. Yahweh says, stand up and show yourselves men. Gird your loins like a man. Is anybody going to stand in the way? But you don't see that happening. And Yahweh has a controversy with the leadership. Not only with the shepherds, but with the leadership. That's why I say a faithful man who could find. If our men today aren't standing up to fear Yah, to teach the children, to teach the family, to lead in the way that Abraham led, which was to teach his household and his children in his household after him the way of Yah, to do justice and judgment. All they looking for is to be the man in their own eyes. But that's not what Yahweh wants. Yahweh wants a man to lead his family after the way of Yah. Yahweh says in verse 20 of Ezekiel 34, "Therefore thus saith Yahweh Elohim unto them, Behold, I, even I, will judge between the fat cattle and between the lean cattle. Because ye have thrust with side and with shoulder, and pushed all the disease with your horns, till ye have scattered them abroad." So not only have the shepherds scattered, but also the leaders of this people being greedy, being selfish, being prideful, and not humbling ourselves. Let me show you how the father should deal and how the man and the leader should deal with his family, with his community. Look in the book. Oh, let me hold off on that real quick, and let me finish this part. In Ezekiel, the 34th chapter, verse 22, it says, "Yahweh, therefore will I save my flock, and they shall no more be a prey. And I will judge between cattle and cattle." You see, Yahweh's going to judge the shepherd, and Yahweh's going to judge the cattle, because Yahweh is the judge. This is his flock. "And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd." So David is not only going to be the king, he's going to be the shepherd. And why would Yahweh choose David to be the shepherd? Well, look in the book of 2 Samuel, the 7th chapter. In 2 Samuel chapter 7, Verse 8, it says, Now therefore, so shalt thou say unto my servant David, Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, I took you from the sheepcote. Where did Yahweh get David from? The sheepcote. Being a shepherd, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, over YIsraEL. Who sets up the shepherd? Yahweh does. Who is he setting up? David. Because David is the kind of shepherd that saw one lamb, just one lamb, getting taken out by a bear and by a lion. And David, as a youth, risked his life, but he didn't mind for his life because he knew who was with him. He knew Yahweh was with him. So he went out and he slew this lion, grabbed this lion by the beard and slew him and the bear to save one lamb. That's the kind of shepherd Yahweh set over his people. And Yahweh told David in verse 9, And I was with you whithersoever you went, and have cut off all thy enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint you a place. I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more as before time. And who did he put over his people? David. And where did he get David from? The sheepcote, from following the sheep. And back in Ezekiel 34, where it said in 23, Yah said, He give one shepherd, and he shall feed them, even his servant David. He shall feed them. He shall be their shepherd. And I, Yahweh, will be their Elohim. And my servant David, a prince among them. I, Yahweh, have spoken it. This is the word of Yah. That since all these shepherds have fouled up, and these leaders have fouled up, he's going to put the one shepherd he know that's going to do the job right. His servant, David. In verse 25, And I will make a covenant with them, a covenant of peace, and will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. And I will make them in the places round about my hill a blessing, and I will cause the shower to come down in his season, and there shall be showers of blessing. And the tree of the field shall yield her fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase, and they shall be safe in their land, and shall know that I am Yahweh when I have broken the bands of their yoke, and delivered them out of the hand of those that serve themselves of them. Because that's what you have going on today. We're under the yoke of people that serve themselves of us. And Yahweh is going to deliver us from this. And they shall no more be a prey to the heathen, neither shall the beasts of the land devour them. But they shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. And I will raise up for them a plant of renown, and they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen any more. Thus shall they know that I, Yahweh their Elohim, am with them, and that they, even the house of Israel, are my people, saith Yahweh Elohim. And ye, my flock, the flock of my pasture, are men, and I am your Elohim, saith Yahweh Elohim. So you see, the flock of Yahweh are men. And this whole chapter is dealing with Yah's flock and how he sees how the shepherds are dealing with his flock. And if we're going to be shepherds, then you have to be the one that Yahweh chose. You have to be after the fashion of the shepherds that Yahweh delighted in. Now go to the book of Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter. In Jeremiah chapter 23, start at verse 9. Yahweh says, "Mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man, and like a man whom wine hath overcome, because of Yahweh, and because of the words of his holiness. For the land is full of adulterers. For because of swearing, the land mourneth. The pleasant places of the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil, and their force is not right." Why is Yahweh saying this? Because the prophets, who are the shepherds, who are the pastors, who are the leaders, aren't doing right. And how do you have a community and you claim Yah is your life and his ways is your ways of life, but you don't teach them? As we saw the shepherds, Yahweh don't like how the shepherds are dealing. He don't like how the pastors are dealing. And now he don't like how the prophets are dealing. And let me show you what he, as you saw, he said that, look, man, their course is evil. Their force is not right. They're not doing right. They're not teaching right. What should we be doing? Should we be leaning on the heathen to teach us and to teach our families? Should we be going to the heathen to learn the ways of righteousness? No. We should go to Yah and Yah's servants. What are we supposed to be learning? Well, Yahweh told you what you should be learning. And hold that, Jeremiah, but go to Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. Because Yahweh lets you know what you need to learn. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9, it says, "Only take heed to thyself, and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life. But teach them to your sons and to your sons' sons, especially the day that you stood before Yahweh in Horeb, Yahweh your Elohim in Horeb. When Yahweh said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children." This is what we're supposed to learn. How to fear Yahweh. But back in Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter, you see what it says. In verse 10, it said, "For the land is full of adulterers, for because of swearing, the land mourneth, the land mourneth, the pleasant places of the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil, and their force is not right. For both prophet and priest are profane. Yea, in my house have I found their wickedness, saith Yah. If the prophet and priest are profane, and that's who your shepherds are, then what are they teaching the people? Profanity. I know you heard that these 4-letter words is profanity, and they are profane. But real profanity is the teachings of false deities. Real profanity is teaching you false books. If somebody pulls out the book of Jubilee, or the so-called book of Jubilee, and says this is the word of Yah, they teaching you profanity. If somebody pulls out the New Testament, they're teaching you profanity. If somebody pulls out the Quran, they're teaching you profanity. If somebody pulls out the so-called book of Jasher, they're teaching you profanity. That's profane. That's not holy. And Yah's shepherds should be showing you holiness. And let me show you one last scripture before I open the line for questions. In the book of Jeremiah, the 3rd chapter. In Jeremiah chapter 3, start looking at the 14th verse. It says, Turn, O backsliding children, saith Yah, for I am married unto you, and I will take you, one of a city, and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion, and I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. So you got to ask yourself, what type of shepherd, what kind of pastor is before you today? Do you have a pastor? Do you have a shepherd? Do you have a leader leading and guiding you with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding after Yah's own heart, showing you the way to Zion, showing you how to seek Yah, teaching you with correction, with love? Is the shepherds that are before you today going out and trying to find the one lamb that was lost? Are they going from hill to mountain, from street to city, from city to country, from state to state, trying to reclaim Yahweh's flock? Who is doing that? If anybody is doing that, is the shepherd that's before you today doing that? Or is the shepherd that's before you today saying, we don't need to go over there. We don't need them. We don't need her. We don't need him. Let them go. I don't want to be bothered with that. It's good that we're scattered throughout the land. If your shepherds are saying this, if your shepherds aren't trying to gather together, then they are against the word of Yah. Because look what it says in Zephaniah, and then I'm opening the line. In Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1, gather yourselves together. Yea, gather yourselves together, O nation not desired. That's the word of Yah. And it is incumbent upon the shepherds to follow through on this decree before the decree bring forth. Before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of Yah come upon you, before the day of Yah's anger come upon you, seek ye Yah, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought, which means which have done, which are doing, which perform Yahweh's judgment. Be ye, it may be ye shall be hid. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of Yahweh's anger. If your shepherds aren't living by this in the time that we are scattered, then these shepherds might not be the shepherds you want to follow. And we're going to open the line if anybody has any questions or any comments. The blog talk number to call is 347-838-8963. The press the number 1. Or you can ask your questions through YouTube or Facebook if you have any. Are there any questions? And this is a time for if anybody that even also.
Okay, we have a question.
All right, we have a question. Is it on Blog Talk or YouTube or Facebook? YouTube. Question from YouTube. Go ahead. Let's just read it to me, brother.
My question is, what the book of APOC?
The Apocrypha.
Mowreh IshYAH.
What is the book of the Apocrypha?
Yeah.
All right, we have a question on YouTube wanting to know what is the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, the word Apocrypha, first off, means unverified. So the book of the Apocrypha means the book of unverified sources. Let you know what the title means. The Apocrypha is a collection of books written, as they say, written after or during the Second Temple period, meaning after we came back from Babylon, there were certain books that were written, and they call these the books of the Apocrypha. You have books like the Wisdom of Solomon, Tobit 1 and 2, the Maccabees 1 and 2, and a few other books, Daniel and the Dragon, certain books like this. And they're of unverified sources, meaning they're not verified. People don't know who wrote them. They don't know if they're the truth or not. And I can tell you that Apocrypha is not the word of Yah. The Apocrypha is not the word of Yah. The Apocrypha has some historical references of things that happened to our people, the children of Israel, but it is not the word of Yah. You will find the Apocrypha in an old edition of the King James 1611 scriptures, but they took that out years later. And you will find the Apocrypha in your Catholic Bibles. But the Apocrypha is not the word of Yah. It is a collection of unverified sources, as the title says. Any other questions? Well, again, if you do, okay, we have a blog talk question. You on the air?
Yes, shalom, shalom.
Shalom. Turn it up.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Is the 4th day of the week where the lights are made, are they equal in age to the first day? And number 2.
Repeat that first question.
The first question is the 4th day when the lights were made,
Oh, the 4th day.
according
Okay.
to the book, is the fourth day as old as the first day? And number two, if there are 29 days in a month, which leaves either or, since Yahweh said there's only 30 days to a month, can I or we find anywhere where 29 days to a month is established?
All right, let me make sure I got your questions right. You're asking, is the fourth day as old as the first day, right?
Right.
And is there anywhere where the scriptures establish 29 days in a month?
Right. And just for clarification on number one, some of us have often heard the term that Kadesh, if I'm standing properly, the moon, the count of a month are equal for a month. So
right,
that
a moon is a month.
Right.
Okay. All right.
That moon and month thing. Okay. Thank you for taking on the answer.
All right. Praise the mighty Yah. I appreciate your questions.
Praise the mighty Yah.
And let me answer those questions. Is the fourth day as old as the first day? Well, of course not. If it was, then there wouldn't be a difference between each day. That's why you call people that's born at the same time twins. Because they came out the same time. They the same age. But I'll prove it to you. The first day, of course, is in Genesis, the first chapter. And it's very simple. In verse 5, it says, and Elohim called the light day, in the darkness he called night, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the first day. Light was made on the first day. Yahweh called light day and darkness night on the first day. I didn't see where he did anything else. But in Genesis 1:14 it says, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the light day from the night, and to let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven that give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And it came to be evening, and it came to be morning. And that was the fourth day. So there's two different things that happened on these days. And the first day came first. The fourth day was fourth. They can't be the same age. And of course, you see that the lesser light rules the night. So I don't understand how anybody, well, I do know, but I don't. But if you take Yahweh's word for it, I wouldn't see how you can confuse that. The lesser light would dictate when your day begins in any stretch of the imagination. When Yahweh said that the light he called day, and the greater light he made to rule over the day, and the lesser light to rule over the night. So anything about a moon dictating your months, which is a collection of days, a measurement of days, would be mistaken. Anybody teaching that and anybody following that is following something that is not verified and teaching something that is not verified by the word of the Most High. The next question was, is there any scriptures that verify or establish 29 days in a month? And no, there's not. There is not a scripture I can show you from Genesis to Malachi. I can't even show you 29 days in the Quran or the New Testament. I can't even show you 29 days in the so-called Book of Jasher. I can't even show you 29 days in the so-called Book of Jubilee or the so-called Book of Enoch. I think those are all those books. I can't show you 29 days in any of those books. I can show you 30 days in almost all of those books. But in the word of Yah, it's only 30 days. You'll never see, ever, in any book of Yah, 29 days being the time of a month. What you will see in the book of Genesis, the 7th chapter, the 11th verse, that Noah went on the ark on the 2nd month and the 17th day of the month. And that in Genesis, the 8th chapter, the 3rd verse, after 150 days, in the 7th month and the 17th day of the month, that the waters began to go back. When you do the math, that's 30 days a month. What you will find is that the only length of time we mourned our dead was for 30 days. What you will find is that Yahweh told Moses to number the children that were a month old and upward. Now, what is a month? What is the measurement of a month? Well, all we have found and all we have shown and all we have seen in the whole word of Yah is 30 days is a month. I know you got a lot of people teaching you the Judaism doctrine or the so-called Jewish doctrine that says that a month is 29 and a half days. But that's just a false doctrine. When you do the research, you'll find that the Jewish, so-called Jewish religion made this up theirself. They made it up. They tell you they made it up. They tell you they came up with this. They tell you this has nothing to do with the word of Yah. They'll tell you that this is not what they got from the book of Yah, that they came up with this. They adjusted the calendar to keep in season with the Roman or Gregorian calendar. It's right there in the Jewish encyclopedia. Right there. Yet and still, many of our people are following the ways of the heathen. And didn't Yahweh say that his watchmen are blind? His watchmen are all ignorant? They're all dumb dogs? Why? Because only an ignorant, blind, dumb dog will follow their enemy. And that's why we're teaching you how to know your culture, your own ways that Yahweh gave us. Any other questions before we close out?
Yes. What is y'all's calendar and what year are we in now?
Question from YouTube or Facebook?
YouTube.
From YouTube asks, what is Yahweh's calendar and what year are we in now? Well, Yahweh never calls it a calendar. Yahweh said these are his set times or seasons. Signs, seasons, days, and years. Even though when you look up the definition of calendar, it says basically the same thing. But Yahweh's calendar is his signs, seasons, days, and years. Yahweh's calendar is is based on his lights that he created and how we are to read these lights that he created. Essentially, in the book of Genesis, the first chapter, the 14th verse says, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, seasons, days, and for days and years. So this is the foundation of Yahweh's so-called calendar. And we were not given the authority to make up what we wanted these lights to do. Yahweh told us what these lights do. He said that they'll be for signs, seasons, days, and years. He said that the greater light rules the day. And then you'll find throughout the word of Yah that every event, every date, every event in the word of Yah happens or is judged by the day that it happened. Even if it physically happened at night, he still assigned it to the day. Because every date in the scriptures is attached to the day. Every month begins with the day. Every year begins with the day. Every week begins with the day. And every day begins in the morning. And you'll find that throughout the whole word of Yah. Just to quickly give you one example, that the next day or every day begins in the morning, go to the book of Judges, because this is your foundation of Yah's calendar. I don't have much time to get into that question completely, but I'm just going to show you how you can quickly understand when Yah's calendar starts and why we use what we use. In the book of Judges, the 16th chapter, start reading at the first verse, and it says, Then went Samson to Gaza, and saw there a harlot, and went in unto her. And it was told the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in, and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, In the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. So you see, the day begins in the morning. Every day begins in the morning. Every single day begins in the morning. There's not a day that won't begin in the morning. And since every day begins in the morning, our calendar is based off of the days. And Yahweh told us to use these lights for signs, seasons, days, and years. The lesser light is a sign for the night, and that's its season. The year that we're in right now is the first year of Yah's Sabbath of years. That's the year we're in. All right? Well, it is that time. So I hope that answered the questions. And again, if you have any other questions, you can give me a call, 513-237-5911. Or you can give Mowreh IshYAH a call at 919-931-6216. And you get all our phone numbers, me, Mowreh Napthtali, Mowreh IshYAH, from our website, worldgatheringyisrael.org. Just go to our contact us page. You can send us an email or you can give us a phone call. All the Morehs of the House of Israel of Cincinnati's phone numbers are posted right there. Well, praise the mighty Yah. It was a blessing and an honor to teach the word of Yah this night and to speak to some of our viewers and listeners. I praise the mighty Yah for your time And until tomorrow, Yahweh loves you very much, and so do we at the House of Israel. Shalom.
God's word, 2 or 3 witnesses so it can be confirmed. To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trusting you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.